chosen one. Can you feel it? That strange weight pressing on your chest right now. That unexplainable stillness wrapping around your spirit like invisible hands. What if I told you that 3 nights ago, at exactly 2:47 a.m. Eastern Time, every angel in heaven received an order they'd never heard before? What if I told you that for 2 hours, 120 minutes, the throne room went completely silent? No worship, no petitions, no intercession, just silence. And what if that silence was about you? Listen to me carefully, dear soul. You didn't stumble onto this message by accident. You were summoned here because while heaven held its breath, your name was being spoken in chambers most believers will never access. The same God who commanded the winds to cease on the Sea of Galilee just commanded every spiritual sound to stop so you could hear what's coming next. You've lived long enough to recognize when something's different, haven't you? You know that eerie quiet before a snowstorm hits New York, when the city that never sleeps suddenly holds its breath. When the sirens stop, the traffic fades, and you can hear your own heartbeat echoing off the buildings. That's what heaven did around your name. For 2 hours, the Almighty pressed pause on the spiritual realm. The angels stopped singing. The prayers stopped rising. Even the accuser's voice went mute. Why? Because God separates his chosen ones when he's about to shift them. When heaven stops speaking, beloved, it's because it wants you to hear what the world can't whisper. Before we go deeper, and we're going much deeper, I want to pause and thank every single one of you who has supported this message through Super Thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and let the Spirit lead your heart. Now, if something stirred in your chest when I said 2 hours, if your spirit recognized itself in those words, I need you to do something right now. Type "I'm listening" in the comments. Don't scroll past this. Heaven responds to acknowledgement, because here's what they don't want you to know. This silence wasn't an accident. It was an appointment, a divine setup, a supernatural isolation designed specifically for what I'm about to reveal. Watch closely. Something is unfolding. Watch closely. Something is aligning. Watch closely. Something is being revealed in you. The question isn't whether heaven went silent. The question is, what did they need the noise to stop for? Have you ever noticed how the loudest moments in your life were actually the quietest? How the night your spouse took their last breath, the hospital room felt like it was wrapped in cotton? How, when you got that diagnosis that changed everything, the doctor's words seemed to echo from another dimension? What if I told you that God operates the exact same way? Dear one, there's something happening in the spiritual realm that most believers will never understand. They think God's favor sounds like trumpets and celebration. They expect breakthrough to announce itself with fanfare and spectacle. But that's not how the Almighty works when he's about to do something that will alter the trajectory of your entire bloodline. No. When God is preparing to move mountains specifically for you, he doesn't turn up the volume, he turns it down. Think about it. When you've lived 70, 80, 90 years on this earth, you've learned something the young haven't figured out yet. You've learned that the most important conversations happen in whispers. The most sacred moments unfold in stillness. The deepest revelations come not in the earthquake or the fire, but in what 1 Kings 19:12 calls a still small voice. That's exactly what happened to Elijah, wasn't it? This mighty prophet, who had just called down fire from heaven, who had just defeated 450 prophets of Baal, suddenly found himself running for his life, exhausted, afraid, sitting under a broom tree begging God to let him die. And what did the Almighty do? He didn't shout. He didn't thunder. He met Elijah in a cave and spoke in a whisper so gentle that the prophet had to cover his face just to receive it. But here's what breaks my heart about your generation, beloved. You've been living through your own cave season, haven't you? Maybe it was when your children stopped calling as often. Maybe it was when you buried the person you built your whole life around. Maybe it was when you looked at your bank account and realized Social Security wasn't stretching like it used to. Maybe it was when you sat in that doctor's office and heard words like chronic or terminal, or there's nothing more we can do. And in those moments, you did what saints have done for thousands of years. You cried out, "Lord, where are you? God, can you hear me? Father, have you forgotten my address?" The silence felt like abandonment, didn't it? But what if I told you something that's going to shatter everything you thought you knew about those quiet seasons? What if the silence wasn't God leaving you, it was God cornering you? What if he wasn't ignoring your prayers, he was isolating you for intimacy? You see, silence in heaven isn't absence, it's attention. When the throne room goes quiet, it's because the king is leaning in. When the angels stop singing, it's because God himself is about to speak. And when everything around you feels muted, distant, unreachable, that's when you're closer to breakthrough than you've ever been in your entire life. Listen to Psalm 46:10. Not the way you've heard it preached 1,000 times, but the way it was written in Hebrew. Be still and know that I am God. That word, still in the original language, is Rapha. It doesn't mean calm down. It means cease striving, stop fighting, let go, surrender so completely that you can't tell where your breath ends and his begins. That's what heaven did for you 3 nights ago. For 2 hours, God commanded every voice in the supernatural realm to cease. Every prayer from every believer on earth paused. Every worship song from every angelic choir silenced. Every accusation from the enemy muted. Why? So you could hear what he's been trying to tell you for years, but the noise of life kept drowning out. The silence wasn't punishment, dear one. It was protection. God knew that what he's about to release over your life is so powerful, so specific, so tailored to your exact DNA, that if any other voice interfered, if any other opinion contaminated it, you'd miss it. You'd second-guess it. You'd talk yourself out of it before it could take root. So he cleared the room. He dismissed the angels. He pressed pause on the entire spiritual atmosphere, and for 120 minutes, and I'm going to explain in just a moment why it had to be exactly that number, you became the only frequency heaven was tuned to. Do you understand what I'm telling you? While you were sleeping, while you were sitting in your favorite chair staring at nothing, while you were lying awake at 3 a.m. wondering if your best years were behind you, heaven was silent because God was speaking. Not to the crowds, not to the masses, to you. Your name echoed through chambers where angels don't even have clearance to enter. Your situation was discussed by the Trinity themselves. Your future was being rewritten by the hand that carved mountains and painted sunsets. But here's the question that will determine whether this moment changes your life, or just becomes another sermon you heard. Now that the silence has lifted, now that heaven has released what it needed to say, are you ready to hear it? Because what I'm about to reveal in the next few minutes will explain why your life has felt the way it's felt, why certain doors closed, why certain people left, why certain seasons seem to last forever. The silence is breaking, and what's coming through is going to leave you speechless. You want to know why heaven went silent? Let me tell you something that's going to shake you to your core. It wasn't because God was ignoring you. It was because something was approaching you, something disguised as harmless, wrapped in familiarity, speaking your language, and if God hadn't muted the noise, you would have walked straight into a trap. Listen to me, beloved. For 2 hours, the Almighty disconnected every spiritual frequency around your life. Every whisper, every impression, every gut feeling shut down. And you felt it, didn't you? That strange emptiness, that hollowness in your prayers. You thought you'd lost your connection, but the truth is God was protecting your reception. Think about this. When did the silence start? Right before that phone call came. Right before that old friend reached out after years. right before that opportunity presented itself that seemed too perfect, too timely, too good to refuse. You thought it was a blessing. Heaven knew it was a test. The enemy doesn't always come with horns and pitchforks, dear one. 2 Corinthians 11 verse 14 tells us plain, Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. He comes dressed in nostalgia. He comes carrying gifts. He comes speaking the vocabulary of your loneliest prayers. And if you're not careful, if you're not isolated in God's silence first, you'll mistake his counterfeit for God's provision. Heaven muted the world because your discernment was about to be tested at a level you've never experienced before. You've lived 70, 80, maybe 90 years on this earth. You've survived wars, raised children, buried loved ones, watched America change in ways that break your heart. You think you can spot a lie from a mile away. But let me tell you something that might offend you. The devil isn't coming for your wisdom. He's coming for your weariness. He knows you're tired. He knows you've been praying for relief, for companionship, for financial breakthrough, for family restoration. And he's been preparing a perfectly crafted imitation of your answer. Same packaging, same delivery time, same words you've been whispering to God in the dark. But heaven said, not on my watch. That's why the silence came. God had to disconnect you from every voice, including the ones you trusted, so you could hear the one voice that matters when deception is at your doorstep. You remember that day in 1 Kings 19 when Elijah was hiding in the cave, depressed, suicidal, convinced he was the only one left who still believed, and God told him to stand at the mouth of the cave because he was about to pass by. First came a violent wind that tore the mountains apart, but God wasn't in the wind. Then came an earthquake that shook the foundation, but God wasn't in the earthquake. Then came fire, but God wasn't in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper. That's where God was. In the silence, after everything else stopped screaming. That's what happened to you 3 nights ago. God cleared the stage, silenced the winds of opinion, shut down the earthquake of anxiety, put out the fire of urgency, because he needed you to hear his whisper about what's really happening in your life right now. Here's what I need you to understand. The same way a subway screech forces you to stop mid-step, the way that metallic shriek cuts through every conversation, every thought, every distraction and makes you freeze, that's what heaven did to the universe around you. God screeched everything to a halt to get your attention before you stepped onto the wrong train. If this is hitting your spirit right now, if something inside you is saying, this is exactly what I've been feeling, I need you to tap that like button. Not for me, for the person who needs this message to reach them before they fall into the wrong hands. Let the algorithm know this word needs to keep moving. Because here's the truth nobody's telling you. This silence saved you. That person who suddenly resurfaced in your life. Heaven disconnected you so you could see them without the rose-colored glasses of memory. That opportunity that seemed divinely timed. God silenced everything so you could examine it in the light of his wisdom instead of the shadow of your desperation. That voice telling you to make a quick decision. Heaven muted it so you could recognize it wasn't his voice at all. Proverbs 14 verse 12 says, "There is a way that appears to be right, but in the end it leads to death." How many roads have looked right to you lately? How many voices have sounded convincing? How many open doors have seemed like answered prayers? God knows. And that's why he hit pause on heaven itself. Because, beloved, at your age, at this stage of your journey, one wrong turn doesn't just cost you time, it could cost you your legacy. One wrong voice doesn't just lead you astray, it could poison the wisdom you're supposed to pass down to your grandchildren. One wrong connection doesn't just hurt you, it could destroy the testimony you've spent a lifetime building. The silence wasn't punishment, it was preservation. And what you're about to discover next will explain exactly what heaven was protecting you from and what it was preparing you for. Because the silence is about to break. And when it does, you need to know which voice to follow. You want to know what really happened during those 2 hours? Let me tell you something that's going to shake you to your core. The silence wasn't empty, beloved. It was crowded. crowded with angels. Think about this for a moment. When was the last time you walked into a room and felt the air change before anyone spoke? When was the last time you sensed something massive was about to happen, but you couldn't see it yet? That's what was occurring in the spiritual realm, while you sat there wondering why God seemed distant, why your prayers felt like they were hitting a concrete ceiling, why breakthrough seemed further away than ever. Heaven's army only moves in quiet seasons, and they were moving for you. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. You've been living your life thinking you were alone in this battle. You wake up at 3 in the morning with anxiety crushing your chest. You stare at unpaid bills scattered across your kitchen table in Queens, in the Bronx, in that small apartment in Brooklyn where the radiator clanks and the neighbors are too loud. You sit in doctors' waiting rooms with test results that terrify you. You watch your children and grandchildren drift further away, their phone calls getting shorter, their visits less frequent. And in all of that, you whispered the same question to the ceiling, God, where are you? But what if I told you that every single moment you felt abandoned, heaven was actually in full combat mode on your behalf? Ephesians 6:12 tells us plainly, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world. Not might wrestle, not could wrestle. We do wrestle. Present tense, continuous action. Right now, this very second, there is a war being waged over your destiny that your natural eyes cannot see. And during those 2 hours of silence, every angel assigned to your breakthrough received new orders. Picture this. Imagine firefighters arriving at a burning building in Manhattan. What's the first thing they do? They clear the area. They push everyone back. They create space. Not because they don't care about the people watching, but because the rescue operation requires precision, focus, and zero interference. One wrong move, one distraction, and everything collapses. That's exactly what happened in the spirit realm over your life. Angels were removing obstacles you didn't even know were there. They were dismantling traps the enemy set 20 years ago that was scheduled to spring this month. They were rerouting paths, redirecting opportunities, repositioning people who are about to walk into your life and change everything. But here's what breaks my heart. While this was happening, you were sitting there thinking God had forgotten you. You were rehearsing your complaints, weren't you? Be honest. Lord, I've been faithful for 70 years, and what do I have to show for it? I've tithed when I could barely afford groceries. I've prayed until my knees ached. I've believed when everyone else gave up. And still, nothing changes. Do you know what heaven heard during your complaint? They heard someone who didn't understand that silence is often the sound of salvation being constructed. When God told Joshua to march around Jericho, what were his instructions? March in silence. Joshua 6:10 records it clearly. Joshua had commanded the army, do not give a war cry, do not raise your voices, do not say a word until the day I tell you to shout. 6 days of absolute silence. 6 days of wondering if they looked foolish. 6 days of the enemy mocking them from the walls. But on the 7th day, when they finally shouted, those walls didn't crack. They didn't crumble slowly. They collapsed completely, instantly, supernaturally. Your 7th day is coming, beloved. But first, heaven needed you silent so the angels could finish their work. You thought you were alone, but heaven was rearranging your entire path. That job rejection last month? An angel moved you away from a company that's about to face federal investigation. That relationship that ended. Divine protection from someone who would have drained the last years of your life. That investment that fell through. God closing a door to something that would have destroyed your family's financial future. Every closed door, every delayed answer, every moment of silence was actually heaven's army working in military precision to position you for what's coming next. And here's what the enemy fears most. You discovering that the battle was being won while you thought you were losing. That's why heaven went silent. Not to ignore you, but to eliminate every distraction. Not to abandon you, but to ensure the victory. Because if you had known what was happening, if you had seen the full scope of the warfare, your fear would have interfered, your doubt would have created static, your anxiety would have blocked the very miracles being constructed on your behalf. So God said to the angels, "Move quickly, move quietly. She doesn't need to see this part. He doesn't need to carry this weight. Let them rest while we work." 2 Kings 6:16-17 records the moment when Elisha's servant woke up to find the city surrounded by enemy armies. He panicked. He screamed, "Master, what shall we do?" And Elisha prayed a prayer that should change how you see your current circumstances. "Lord, open his eyes so he may see." And when God opened his eyes, that young man saw something that made him stop trembling. The hills were full of horses and chariots of fire surrounding them. The angels outnumbered the enemy 10,000 to 1. The battle was already won. He just couldn't see it yet. Right now, in this moment, if God opened your spiritual eyes the way he opened that servant's eyes, you would fall to your knees weeping. Because you would see that every angel in heaven's army is in formation around your life, around your family, around your future. You would see that the silence wasn't absence, it was strategy. Heaven doesn't go quiet because they've given up on you. Heaven goes quiet because they're about to do something so massive, so miraculous, so precisely orchestrated that they need total focus. No distractions, no interference, just divine execution of a plan that was written before you were born. But there's something you need to understand about what happens next, because now that the angels have finished positioning themselves, now that the battlefield has been cleared and the traps have been dismantled, heaven is about to break its silence. And when heaven speaks again after strategic silence, beloved, nothing remains the same. So let me ask you something that's going to determine everything. Are you ready for the sound of victory after 2 hours of warfare you couldn't see? You know what breaks my heart? It's when I meet someone in their 70s, their 80s, sitting across from me with tears in their eyes, whispering the same question, does God even remember my name anymore? Maybe that's you right now. Maybe you've been praying the same prayer for so long that your knees have worn grooves in the carpet beside your bed. Maybe you've called out to heaven so many times that your voice feels hoarse from years of unanswered cries. Maybe you've watched younger people receive their breakthroughs while you're still waiting for yours, and somewhere deep inside, you started believing the cruelest lie the enemy ever whispered. Your time has passed. But what if I told you that every moment you felt forgotten, God was actually preparing something so profound that he had to clear the airways of heaven itself just to deliver it? Listen to me, beloved. When a surgeon operates, what's the first thing they do? They silence the room. No music, no conversation, no distractions. Why? Because what they're about to do requires absolute precision. One wrong move, one interrupted focus, and everything changes. That's what happened 3 nights ago. The great physician looked at your situation, your heart, your pain, your decades of wondering if anyone sees you, and he said to every angel, every principality, every power in the heavenly realm, be silent. I'm performing surgery on my chosen one, and I need complete focus. For 2 hours, the throne room held its breath. Not because God was angry with you, not because heaven had given up on you, but because what he's about to resurrect inside you is so delicate, so powerful, so precisely timed, that even the flutter of angel wings could interfere with the procedure. You see, God doesn't silence heaven for just anyone. He silences it for the ones carrying assignments so weighty that clarity becomes their greatest weapon. He silences it for the ones whose next chapter will require them to hear his voice above every other sound, including the voice of their own doubt. Think about Elijah. 1 Kings chapter 19. After the greatest victory of his life on Mount Carmel, he found himself running, hiding, wanting to die, and God didn't speak to him in the earthquake, didn't speak in the fire, didn't speak in the wind. He spoke in the still, small voice, the whisper that came after everything else went silent. Why? Because Elijah needed to hear something his spectacular miracles couldn't teach him. He needed to hear, "You are not alone. You are not finished. Your greatest work is still ahead." That's you, chosen one. That's your story unfolding right now. For decades you've been hearing noise. The noise of disappointment telling you that you missed your moment. The noise of society saying that people your age should fade quietly into the background. The noise of well-meaning family members suggesting you've earned the right to stop dreaming, stop believing, stop expecting God to move mountains in your twilight years. But God just hit the mute button on all of it. He silenced the accusers who've been whispering that you're too old. He hushed the voices that convinced you your scars disqualified you. He turned down the volume on every lie that said your best chapters were written decades ago. And in that silence, that sacred, uncomfortable, necessary silence, he's about to speak something that will rewrite your ending. You've felt abandoned, haven't you? You've sat in church services watching others get prophetic words, while heaven seemed to skip over you. You've seen prayers answered for people who've known God for 5 years, while you've been faithful for 50. And somewhere in that waiting, you started wondering if you'd done something wrong, if you'd somehow missed the boat, if God had moved on to more promising vessels. But here's the revelation that's going to shatter that lie forever. God didn't go silent because he was done with you. He went silent because he was focusing on you. The way dawn whispers before it shines, soft, almost imperceptible, easy to miss if you're not paying attention. That's how God speaks before he shifts your entire life. He doesn't announce it with trumpets. He announces it with stillness, with quiet, with a silence so profound that when his voice finally breaks through, you'll know beyond any shadow of doubt that what you're hearing is divine. Right now, in this very moment, something ancient is stirring inside you. Something that's been dormant through years of disappointment is waking up. Something that died in 1987, or 1995, or 2008 is being breathed on by the Spirit of the living God. You feel it, don't you? That flutter in your chest, that strange warmth spreading through your spirit. That's not nostalgia, beloved. That's resurrection. Heaven didn't go silent to distance itself from you. Heaven went silent to draw you back to the voice you've been straining to hear through all the noise, back to the calling you thought expired, back to the dreams you buried under decades of being realistic, back to the person you were before the world convinced you to be small. If you're still here, if these words are landing in your spirit like arrows of fire, I need you to do something right now. Comment, "Speak, Lord," below. Not tomorrow, not when you finish the video, right now. Because that simple act of obedience is your stepping into alignment with what heaven orchestrated 3 nights ago. Because what I'm about to tell you next will explain exactly why this silence was necessary and what God saw in you that required him to clear every distraction from the airways between his throne and your heart. You've been waiting for this moment. You've felt it building in your spirit. Now, here's the revelation that's going to shatter everything you thought you knew about divine timing. God didn't choose 2 days. He didn't choose 2 weeks. He didn't choose 2 months. He chose 2 hours. And beloved, that number wasn't random, it was surgical. Let me ask you something that's going to cut deep. How many times in your life have you been in the middle of something important when suddenly, inexplicably, everything just stopped? The phone goes silent, the traffic clears, the noise fades, and for a brief window, just long enough to be uncomfortable, but not long enough to adjust, you're forced into absolute stillness. That's what happened in heaven over your life. 2 hours. 120 minutes. The same length of time it takes to drive from Manhattan to the Hamptons. The same amount of time you spend at Sunday service. But in the spiritual realm, those 2 hours weren't measured in minutes, they were measured in moments of separation. You see, in Scripture, the number 2 carries a weight that most believers never grasp. 2 witnesses established truth in Deuteronomy 19:15. 2 tablets carried the commandments that would define a nation. 2 angels stood at the empty tomb declaring resurrection. 2 always represents divine testimony and divine transition. But here's what breaks my heart and what should shake you to your core. Most people think silence from God means abandonment. They think when heaven goes quiet, it's because they've done something wrong. They've been overlooked. They've been forgotten. No. Chosen one, when heaven goes silent, it's because something is being realigned. Think about this carefully. 2 hours is long enough to disrupt your rhythm, to pull you out of the noise, to separate you from the crowd, to make you wonder what's happening. But it's short enough that you can't settle into it. You can't get comfortable in the silence. You can't normalize the stillness. God was forcing you into a pocket of time where you had no choice but to listen. I need you to understand what was happening in the invisible realm while you were sitting in your kitchen at 3 in the morning, unable to sleep, while you were staring at the ceiling, wondering if anybody up there still cared, while you were questioning if your prayers were even leaving the room. Heaven wasn't ignoring you. Heaven was isolating you. The same way a surgeon creates a sterile field before operating, removing every distraction, every contamination, every interference. That's what God did around your spirit. He cleared the atmosphere. He silenced the angels. He even muzzled the enemy's voice for 120 minutes. Why? Because your assignment was crossing over into a new frequency, and the old noise couldn't be allowed to interfere with what he was about to download into your spirit. Let me take you deeper. In Acts chapter 1, after Jesus ascended, the disciples gathered in the upper room. How long did they wait? Acts 1:15 tells us there were about 120 gathered. That number again. And what happened after that appointed time? Pentecost, power, transformation, the birth of the church. Your 2 hours was your upper room. But here's where it gets intensely personal. And I need every senior watching this to lean in close. You've lived 70, 80, maybe 90 years on this earth. You've buried spouses. You've raised children who don't call anymore. You've survived wars, recessions, and seasons that should have destroyed you. And somewhere along the way, you started believing the lie that your purpose expired with your youth. The enemy whispered, "You're too old. God's moved on to younger vessels. Your time is over." But what if those 2 hours of silence were God saying, "I've been saving the best assignment for the seasoned warrior"? Moses was 80 when the burning bush happened. Not 20, not 40, 80. Because God needed someone who had lived long enough to know that the impossible is where he does his best work. Heaven went silent for 2 hours because during that window, that precise, appointed, divinely orchestrated window, your spirit crossed into a new assignment, not a new suggestion, not a new possibility, a new assignment. Everything you've survived wasn't just survival, beloved. It was qualification. Every tear was training. Every loss was preparation. Every moment you felt forgotten was actually you being hidden, protected, preserved for this exact transition. And now the silence is breaking. Can you feel it? That shift in the atmosphere around your life. That stirring you've been trying to explain but can't quite put into words. That's not nostalgia. That's not wishful thinking. That's the sound of heaven resuming, but this time, you're operating on a different frequency. The angels are singing again, but you can hear harmonies now that you couldn't hear before. The prayers are rising again, but yours are going to a place they've never accessed before. The warfare is active again, but you're carrying weapons now that hell has never seen you wield. This wasn't silence, chosen one. This was rebirth. And what's about to break loose in your life won't just change you. It's going to change everyone connected to your bloodline. But first, you need to understand what happens when heaven speaks again after divine silence. Because when God breaks his own silence, what comes out of his mouth isn't a whisper, it's a decree. And that decree has your name written all over it. Now listen to me very carefully. Chosen one. Something shifted the moment that silence broke. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Right now, in this very second, you are standing at the edge of the greatest transformation your soul has ever known. You want to know what happened when heaven's 2 hour silence shattered? The chains shattered with it. Every limitation that's been wrapped around your destiny like iron bands, they heard the sound of heaven's voice returning, and they cracked. Every door that's been locked for decades, the moment the angels resumed their worship, those locks began to turn. Every promise that seemed dead and buried when God spoke again after that silence, resurrection power flooded into your timeline. But here's what's going to shake you to your core. You are not the same person heaven went silent for. Let me say that again, and I want you to feel the weight of every syllable. You are not the same person heaven went silent for. Something happened in that silence that you can't see yet with your natural eyes, but your spirit already knows. While the throne room held its breath, divine surgery was performed on your soul. While the angels waited in holy anticipation, generational curses were being severed from your bloodline. While everything in the spiritual realm paused, God was recalibrating your frequency to match what He's about to release. Think about Lazarus in that tomb. 4 days dead, wrapped in burial clothes, sealed behind a stone. Everything looked finished. Everything felt final. But then Jesus stood at that grave and did something that defies human logic. He commanded a dead man to live. And when Lazarus walked out, do you think he was the same man who went in? Absolutely not. Death touched him, but resurrection transformed him. John 11:43 records it with stunning simplicity. Jesus called in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out." 3 words that shattered death itself. And beloved, the same voice that called Lazarus is calling you right now. Not out of a physical tomb, but out of the grave of too late, out of the sepulchre of too old, out of the burial plot of too broken. You've been living like the silence meant abandonment, but I'm here to tell you, the silence was preparation for proclamation. Now watch what begins to happen in your life starting this very moment. And I mean watch closely, because these shifts are going to come so fast, so unexpectedly, that you'll know it's supernatural. Conversations are going to shift. That family member who hasn't called in years, your phone's about to ring. That relationship that felt dead, watch resurrection manifest. People are going to start seeing you differently, treating you differently, responding to you differently, not because you changed on the outside, but because something shifted on the inside during heaven's silence. Timing is going to align in ways that defy coincidence. Opportunities you stopped praying for are going to present themselves. Doors you stopped knocking on are going to swing open from the inside. Resources you stopped expecting are going to show up exactly when you need them, not early enough to doubt, not late enough to panic, but precisely on time to prove that God's been orchestrating every second. Peace is going to deepen in your spirit. That anxiety that's kept you awake for years, it's losing its grip. That fear that's whispered lies in your ear every morning. Its voice is fading. You're going to wake up one morning soon and realize the storm in your mind has stilled. Not because your circumstances changed, but because heaven's silence rewired how you respond to chaos. Your discernment is going to sharpen like a blade being honed. You'll walk into rooms and immediately sense what's real and what's pretense. You'll hear people speak and know the truth beneath their words. You'll face decisions and hear the Holy Spirit's guidance with crystal clarity. 2 Timothy 1-7 promises, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love, and of a sound mind. That sound mind, it's activating right now. And here's what's going to shock you most. Old desires are going to fall off you like dead leaves in October wind. Things you used to crave won't interest you anymore. People you used to chase won't have access to you anymore. Habits you've battled for decades are going to lose their power over you, not because you're trying harder, but because heaven's silence killed their root system. You are not the same person heaven went silent for. Say it with me one more time, and let it penetrate every cell of your being. You are not the same person heaven went silent for. The silence didn't just pause heaven, it transformed you. And now that the silence has broken, you're about to see the evidence of what happened in the unseen realm. If you feel this shift happening right now, if something inside you is confirming every word I'm speaking, I need you to type 4 words in the comments. I receive the shift. That's not just engagement, beloved. That's you claiming spiritually what's already yours. That's you agreeing with what heaven accomplished in the silence. Because here's the truth that will propel you into your next chapter. Heaven's silence created your transformation, and your transformation is about to create breakthrough for everyone connected to your life. But the question burning in the heavenly realm right now is this: what will you do with the person you've become? Chosen one, that first 2 hours was only the beginning. You felt it shift something inside you, didn't you? That moment when I said heaven went silent, something in your chest recognized the weight of those words. But here's what's going to shake you to your core. Heaven did not just silence itself. Heaven concealed something in that silence. There was something inside the quiet. There was something inside the quiet. There was something inside the quiet. Listen to me carefully, beloved. I'm 73 years old. I've buried friends. I've watched empires rise and fall. I've seen movements come and go. And in all my years of walking with the Almighty, I've learned one unchangeable truth. God never wastes silence. When He stops speaking audibly, it's because He's speaking surgically directly into the hidden chambers of your spirit, where the noise of this world can't interfere. Think about Elijah in 1 Kings chapter 19. He's running for his life, hiding in a cave, convinced he's the last one standing for God. Then comes the wind, but God wasn't in the wind. Then comes the earthquake, but God wasn't in the earthquake. Then comes the fire, but God wasn't in the fire. And after the fire, a still, small voice. A whisper so quiet that Elijah had to wrap his face just to step out and listen. Why would the God who spoke worlds into existence choose to whisper? Because some revelations are too sacred for shouting. Some assignments are too precise for public announcement. Some transformations require absolute isolation from every other frequency, even heavenly ones. While angels repositioned, while time itself seemed to pause, a message was being sealed inside your spirit. Not written on tablets, not broadcast through prophets. Sealed, embedded, downloaded directly into the core of who you are, at a level so deep that your conscious mind hasn't caught up yet. But your soul knows. That's why you're still watching. That's why you haven't scrolled away. That's why something inside you is trembling right now. Most people never discover what God hides in silence. They panic when prayers seem to bounce off the ceiling. They assume abandonment when heaven goes quiet. They fill the void with noise, television, phone calls, busyness, anything to avoid the deafening sound of divine stillness. But you, chosen one, you're not most people. You've lived long enough to understand that silence isn't always absence. Sometimes silence is presence so intense it requires everything else to shut down. You've sat beside enough hospital beds, you've walked through enough valleys, you've endured enough dark nights to know that God's greatest work often happens in His quietest moments. Job sat in silence for 7 days, before his friends even spoke a word. Genesis tells us the earth was formless and void, silent, dark, empty before God said, "Let there be light." Jesus spent 40 days in the wilderness with nothing but silence and spiritual warfare before He launched the ministry that would split human history in two. The pattern is unmistakable. Before the manifestation comes the isolation. Before the breakthrough comes the blackout. Before the testimony comes the test in absolute quiet. But here's what breaks my heart. Here's what keeps me up at night praying for people just like you. So many believers miss their moment because they're afraid of the silence. They interpret the quiet as rejection instead of selection. They think God has moved on when He's actually moved in so close, so intimately, so deeply that He's speaking beneath the frequency of human hearing. You were being rewritten in the dark. Let that settle into your bones for a moment. Not punished, not abandoned, not forgotten, rewritten. Every disappointment, every delay, every door that slammed in your face, it was all God's pen crossing out the old narrative and composing something new. Something the enemy couldn't see coming, because it was being written in invisible ink that only activates in his perfect timing. 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 18 says, "We are being transformed into his image from glory to glory." But did you notice, it doesn't say from glory to more glory. It says from glory to glory, meaning there's a transition space, a between time, a silent passage where one glory is fading and the next hasn't manifested yet. You're in that space right now. I can feel it through the screen. You've been in that space for months, maybe years, wondering why everything that once worked doesn't work anymore. Why prayers that used to get instant answers now seem to float unanswered. Why the fire you once felt has been replaced by this strange, weighted stillness. It's because God is no longer speaking to who you were. He's speaking to who you're becoming. And the person you're becoming can only hear him in frequencies the old you couldn't access. The silence isn't empty, beloved. The silence is full. So full of divine activity that heaven itself had to clear the airwaves just so this specific word could reach you without interference. So here's the question that's going to determine everything about your next chapter. What did heaven hide in your silence that the noise was preventing you from discovering? Dear one, let me ask you something that might cut straight to the bone. How many nights have you laid awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling of your bedroom, running through the highlight reel of your life? How many times have you whispered into the darkness, "God, did I waste it? Did I miss what I was supposed to become?" You've lived 70, 80, maybe 90 years on this earth. You've buried people you loved more than your own breath. You've watched dreams crumble like old photographs in your hands. You've felt your body betray you, one joint at a time, one diagnosis at a time, until the person in the mirror looks like a stranger wearing your face. And somewhere along the way, you started believing a lie. You started thinking that God keeps score the way the world does, that he looks at your mistakes the way your children looked at you when you disappointed them, that he's been waiting all these years for you to finally get it right before he could use you. But listen to me now. During those 2 hours of divine silence, something extraordinary happened. While you slept in your bed on Roosevelt Avenue, while you sat in your kitchen in Brooklyn watching the sun come up over the buildings, while you stared out your window in Queens wondering if anyone still remembered your name, heaven was conducting a scan. Not the kind of scan that looks for what's wrong, the kind that looks for what's still alive. God scanned the timeline of your life the way a cardiologist studies a heartbeat on a monitor, frame by frame, moment by moment, beat by beat. He wasn't looking for your failures. He was looking for your faithfulness. He wasn't counting your falls. He was counting how many times you got back up. Psalm 139 tells us, "You have searched me, Lord, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar." But here's what most preachers won't tell you about that verse. When God searches you, he's not looking for reasons to reject you. He's looking for reasons to restore you. You thought he was disappointed in you. But during those 2 hours of silence, heaven was actually honoring the journey you walked when no one else was watching. That marriage that almost killed you when it ended, God saw how you chose forgiveness over bitterness. That financial collapse in '08 when you lost everything, he saw how you still tithed from your social security check. That diagnosis the doctor gave you 3 years ago, he saw how you kept praying for others, even when your own body was falling apart. You thought you failed as a parent because your children don't call as often as they should. But heaven saw every midnight prayer you whispered over their lives, every tear you cried into your pillow, every time you chose to love them, even when they broke your heart. You thought you failed as a spouse because you couldn't save that marriage. But heaven saw how you tried, how you forgave 70 times 7, how you carried hope long after logic said to let go. You thought you failed at life because you never became wealthy, never became famous, never became what the world calls successful. But heaven looked at your scars and called them sacred. Do you understand what I'm telling you? During those 2 hours, God wasn't looking at what you lost. He was looking at what you've been carrying. And what he saw made every angel in heaven lean forward in wonder, because you survived what should have destroyed you. You kept faith when faith made no sense. You chose love when hate would have been easier. You stayed on your knees when standing felt impossible. Isaiah 43:2 promises, "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you." Notice, it doesn't say if you pass through, it says when. Because God knew your life wouldn't be easy. He knew the rivers would rise, he knew the floods would come, but he also knew something else. He knew you'd make it to the other side. And now, right now, as these words wash over your weary soul, heaven is whispering something you need to hear. You didn't fail. You persevered. You didn't waste your life. You invested it in things that will echo in eternity long after these buildings crumble to dust. Your children may not understand you, but your prayers are still working in their lives. Your body may be failing, but your spirit is finally awakening. Your bank account may be small, but your treasure in heaven has been accumulating interest for decades. The scan is complete, beloved, and the results just came back. You're not too old. You're not too broken. You're not too late. You are exactly what heaven has been preparing for this final hour. If you feel this truth touching the deepest part of your soul, if something inside you is finally exhaling after holding its breath for years, type "He sees me" right now in the comments. Let heaven know you recognize this moment, because recognition is the first step toward restoration. But here's what you need to understand as we move forward. The scan wasn't just diagnostic, it was directional. Heaven didn't just examine what you've been through. Heaven identified what you're being prepared for. And what I'm about to reveal next will show you exactly why you had to survive everything you survived to get to this sacred moment. Now listen to me very carefully, because what I'm about to tell you might shake you to your core. Heaven's 2-hour silence wasn't just about what God wanted you to hear. It was about exposing who's been preventing you from hearing it. There's someone close to you, someone you trust, someone you talk to almost every day whose voice has been drowning out the voice of the Almighty. I can feel some of you tensing up right now. Your mind is already racing through names. Your spouse, your adult children, that friend you've known for 40 years. Stay with me, chosen one, because this revelation is going to cut deep, but it's going to set you free. You see, it's never the stranger who pulls God's chosen off course. It's never the enemy you can see coming. It's always the familiar voice, the trusted voice, the voice that sounds like wisdom but carries the frequency of fear. Think about Eve in the garden. Genesis 3:1 tells us the serpent was more cunning than any beast of the field. But notice he didn't attack her with obvious evil. He questioned her with concern. Did God really say you must not eat from any tree? He made doubt sound like reasonable conversation. He made disobedience sound like liberation. That's exactly what's happening to you right now. Someone in your inner circle has been speaking fear into you when God was whispering faith. They've been calling it being realistic when God was calling you to the supernatural. They've been saying at your age when heaven was saying for such a time as this. They've been using logic to kill what God was trying to birth through mystery. And you know what breaks my heart? You've been listening to them because you love them, because they're family, because they've been there through the hard times. But chosen one, presence doesn't equal permission. Longevity doesn't equal authority. Just because someone's been in your life for decades doesn't mean they belong in your destiny. Let me paint you a picture that might hurt, but will heal. Imagine a symphony orchestra at Carnegie Hall, 90 musicians, all playing Beethoven's Ninth. Beautiful, powerful, moving. But there's one violin in the back, just slightly out of tune. Not enough for the untrained ear to catch, but enough to make the conductor wince. Enough to ruin the recording. Enough to disturb the masterpiece. God muted the entire world for 2 hours so you could finally hear that one instrument that's been off key in your life. It might be your daughter who keeps reminding you of every past failure when God's trying to write your future. It might be your best friend who responds to every God-sized dream with, "That's nice, but..." It might even be that church member who's always got a scripture to tell you why you should sit down, stay quiet, and stop believing God for the impossible. Proverbs 13:20 doesn't mince words. Walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm. Notice it doesn't say a companion of enemies, it says fools. People who mean well, but speak death. People who love you, but limit you. People who are comfortable with where they are, and threatened by where God's taking you. Here's what the 2-hour silence revealed, and this is going to sting. Some people in your life are more committed to your comfort than your calling. They'd rather you stay small and safe than grow large and dangerous to the kingdom of darkness. They've disguised their fear as your protection. But God said, "Enough." When Joshua was about to cross the Jordan River into the Promised Land, do you remember what God told him in Joshua 1-2? "Moses, my servant, is dead. Now then, you and all these people, get ready to cross the Jordan River." God wasn't being cruel, he was being clear. The voice that led you here cannot lead you there. The mentor who brought you to the edge of your miracle might not be meant to walk you into it. The silence revealed who doesn't belong in your next season. I'm not telling you to be cruel. I'm not telling you to cut people off in anger. But I am telling you that God is shifting the voices around you because he's about to shift the level you're operating on. And some people cannot breathe at that altitude. They'll suffocate and they'll try to pull you back down to where they can breathe. This is why Jesus said in Matthew 10:36, "A man's enemies will be the members of his own household." Not might be, will be. Because the closer someone is to you, the more power their voice has to drown out his. Right now, the Holy Spirit is highlighting someone in your life. You felt their name whisper through your mind while I was talking. That's not condemnation, that's confirmation. God's not asking you to hate them. He's asking you to discern them. To recognize that their voice, no matter how well-intentioned, has been the static between you and your destiny. The question burning in your spirit right now is this: what do you do with this revelation? How do you move forward when the person blocking your hearing is someone you love? You know what nobody talks about? The crying you did at 3 a.m. when your spouse's side of the bed went cold. The mornings you woke up and forgot they were gone, then remembered all over again like a knife twisting in fresh wounds. The silence in your house that screams louder than any argument ever did. I'm talking to the grandmother who raised 4 children, but eats dinner alone now. I'm talking to the man who built a career for 43 years and got a handshake and a plastic watch at retirement. I'm talking to every single one of you who thought by 70, by 80, life would finally make sense, but instead, you're sitting there wondering if anyone even remembers your name. You've cried more tears in private than anyone knows, haven't you? Listen to me carefully, chosen one. Those 2 hours, heaven went silent. That wasn't God abandoning you. That was the furnace moment, the refining fire, the place where everything false, everything temporary, everything that wasn't supposed to survive gets burned away. Malachi 3:3 says, "He will sit as a refiner and purifier of silver." Not gold, silver, because silver requires the refiner to watch it constantly, never looking away, never leaving it alone. One moment too long in the fire, and it's destroyed. One moment too short, and it's not pure. You think God wasn't watching when your marriage fell apart? He was watching. You think he didn't see when the doctors gave you 6 months, and you're still here 5 years later? He was refining. You think he missed the moment your own children stopped calling? He saw it all because he never took his eyes off you. Gold screams before it shines. Let me tell you something that's going to shake you. That depression that almost took you out in your 50s. That financial collapse that left you eating 1 meal a day. That betrayal from the person you trusted most. God didn't cause it, but he allowed it. And here's why: because you were carrying something so precious, so powerful, so dangerous to the kingdom of darkness that you had to be purified 7 times over. The enemy saw what God planted in you before you were born, and he's been trying to contaminate it, corrupt it, compromise it your entire life. But God said, "No, this one belongs to me, and I'm going to burn away every lie, every limitation, every generational curse, until all that's left is pure purpose." Do you understand what I'm saying? Your breaking wasn't random, it was required. Not because you deserved punishment, but because you were being prepared for promotion. Job lost everything: his children, his wealth, his health, his reputation. The Bible says in Job 23:10, "But he knows the way that I take. When he has tested me, I will come forth as gold." Job didn't understand it while he was sitting in ashes, scraping his sores with broken pottery. But God was watching. God was refining. God was preparing Job to be restored with double what he lost. You've been in that ash pile, haven't you? Scraping at wounds that won't heal, wondering why God would let someone who served him faithfully suffer like this. Wondering if maybe you did something wrong, if maybe you're being punished for sins you can't even remember. Stop right there. That's the enemy's voice, not God's. The silence was God's way of burning off everything that kept you small, every fear that made you play it safe, every rejection that made you believe you weren't enough, every disappointment that convinced you your best days were behind you. The fire had to get hot enough to melt those lies, and the only way to survive that kind of heat is if God himself is tending the flame. You're still here. After everything hell threw at you, after every reason to quit, after every night you begged God to just take you home, you're still breathing. That's not luck. That's not coincidence. That's proof that the refining worked. 1 Peter 1-7 tells us, "These trials will show that your faith is genuine. It is being tested as fire tests and purifies gold, though your faith is far more precious than mere gold." Did you catch that? Your faith tested by everything you've survived is more valuable to heaven than all the gold in Fort Knox, more precious than the wealth of nations, more powerful than any earthly treasure. The 2-hour silence, that was God saying, "Everyone be quiet. I need them to hear this. I need them to understand that their pain wasn't pointless. Their tears weren't wasted. Their breaking was actually their making." Right now, someone watching this is ready. You're done with the ashes. You're done with the mourning. You're done believing the lie that your suffering disqualified you when God is saying it anointed you. If you're ready for the refining to be complete, if you're ready to step out of the furnace as pure gold type, make me new in the comments right now. Because what I'm about to tell you next will prove that every single thing you survived was preparing you for what's coming. You know what haunts me most about the saints I've counseled over 50 years in New York? It's not their sins, it's not their doubts. It's the look in their eyes when they whisper, "Pastor, I think I took a wrong turn somewhere, and now it's too late to get back on track." Maybe that's you right now. Maybe you're 73, 81, maybe you just turned 92, and you're sitting there thinking your best years are scattered behind you, like yesterday's newspapers blowing down Broadway. You look at the path you've walked, and all you see are detours, dead ends, and decades that feel wasted. But what if I told you something that's going to shatter that lie forever? Heaven didn't just silence the world for 2 hours. Heaven redrew your path. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. While you were sleeping, while you were praying, while you were crying into your pillow, wondering if God still remembered your address, the Almighty was in his war room with maps of your life spread across eternity. And he wasn't mourning your mistakes. He was rerouting your destiny. Think about the subway system beneath our feet right here in New York City. Miles and miles of tracks, connecting boroughs, moving millions. But every now and then, the MTA shuts down a line. Not because it's broken, because they're improving it, rerouting it, making it faster, safer, more efficient. And when that train comes back online, it doesn't follow the old path anymore. it follows a better one. That's what happened to you during the silence. You see, the problem with most believers is they think God only speaks in the noise. They think miracles only come with thunder and earthquakes and voices from burning bushes. But let me tell you something that'll change how you read Scripture forever. Some of God's most powerful moves happened in absolute silence. When Jesus was in that tomb for 3 days, there was no angelic announcement, no heavenly choir, just cold, dark, suffocating silence. But beneath that silence, resurrection was forming. Death was being conquered. Eternity was being rewritten. Romans 8:28 doesn't say some things work together for good. It says all things. That job you lost at 67 that devastated you. Positioning. That health scare that terrified you last year. Direction. That relationship that ended and left you feeling like half a person. Divine rerouting. You've been judging your journey by human metrics, success, status, stability. But heaven measures your path by one thing only: proximity to purpose. And sometimes, beloved, God has to take you the long way around because the shortcut would have destroyed you. Moses spent 40 years in Pharaoh's palace learning to be a prince, then 40 years in the desert learning to be a shepherd. 80 years old when God finally said, "Now you're ready." Was that wasted time? Or was that divine curriculum for the man who would split seas and speak face to face with the Almighty? David was anointed king at 17, but didn't touch the throne until he was 30. 13 years of running, hiding, living in caves, watching a madman sit on the throne that had his name written on it. Wasted years? Or was God building in David's character what the crown would eventually require? Here's what's hitting me right now in my spirit, and I need you to catch this. Everything you lost was positioning. Every delay was direction. That door that slammed in your face in 1987, God was protecting you from a path that would have led you away from this moment. That promotion you didn't get in 1994, heaven was steering you towards something your natural eyes couldn't see yet. That move you almost made in 2003 that fell through at the last second. The Almighty was rerouting you around destruction you never even knew was waiting. You think you're behind schedule. God says you're right on time. You think you missed your exit. Heaven says you're exactly where the rerouting needed to bring you. You think your path has been one long series of mistakes. But what if every single step, even the ones that hurt, even the ones that looked wrong, was part of a master route designed before you were born? Jeremiah 29:11 wasn't written for the young and successful, dear one. It was written for people in exile. For people who thought they'd lost everything. For people sitting in circumstances they never wanted, wondering how they ended up so far from where they planned to be. And to them, to you, God says, I know the plans I have for you. Plans to prosper you. Plans to give you hope and a future. Not plans to punish you for past turns. Plans that you see every turn. Right now, something is shifting beneath your feet. Can you feel it? That's not anxiety, that's anticipation. That's your spirit recognizing what your mind hasn't caught up to yet. You are stepping into the route you were always meant to walk. The detours are over. The delays have served their purpose. The rerouting is complete. And the path ahead? It's clearer than it's ever been in your entire life. If you feel your path shifting right now, if something in your chest is confirming that your route just changed, type these 3 words in the comments. Guide me, Lord. That's not just a prayer. That's your spiritual GPS acknowledging the new coordinates heaven just downloaded into your soul. Because what comes next isn't about where you've been. It's about where you're going. And beloved, you're about to discover that the best route was the one you never saw coming. But before you can walk this new path, you need to understand something critical about what heaven removed during those 2 hours of silence. You feel it, don't you? Right now, as I'm speaking these words, something inside you is different. That crushing weight you've carried for so long, the one you stopped naming, because naming it made it too real. It's lighter. And you're wondering if you're imagining it. Let me tell you something that's going to shake you. You're not imagining anything. For the first time in years, maybe decades, your spirit isn't at war with itself anymore. You see, beloved, most people your age have been fighting an invisible battle so long they've forgotten what peace feels like. You wake up tired, even after sleeping 8 hours. You pray, but your prayers feel like they're bouncing off the ceiling. You talk to your children and grandchildren, but somehow you're speaking different languages. You look in the mirror and barely recognize the person staring back. That's not age, dear one. That's spiritual suffocation. But something shifted when heaven went silent for those 2 hours. Something you can't explain with logic or medicine or therapy. The knot that's been choking your soul, the one doctors couldn't diagnose, pills couldn't touch, and time couldn't heal, it's loosening. Think about what Jesus said in Matthew 11:28. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Not I will give you activity, not I will give you distraction. Rest. Deep, bone level, soul-saturating rest. That's what's happening to you right now. You know what happens after a storm passes through New York? The air changes. You step outside and suddenly you can breathe again. The humidity that made every breath feel like work, it's gone. The pressure that made your joints ache and your head pound, it's lifted. The sky is clearer than it's been in weeks. That's your spirit right now, chosen one. The storm ended, and you didn't even realize you'd been drowning in it until you could finally breathe. For how many years have you been carrying burdens that weren't yours to carry? Your children's failures, your spouse's disappointments, your parents' unfulfilled dreams. The financial pressures that followed you from your 40s into your 70s. The regrets that visit you at 3 a.m. when the house is too quiet and the past is too loud. You've been Atlas, holding up a world that was never your assignment. But during those 2 hours of heaven's silence, God reached down and said, "Put it down." Not eventually, not when you're stronger. Now. And whether you realized it or not, your hands, they opened. The weight, it fell. And your shoulders, bent for so long they forgot how to straighten their rising. Psalm 55:22 promises us, "Cast your burden on the Lord, and he will sustain you." But notice it doesn't say he'll sustain you and the burden, he'll sustain you. The burden gets left behind. You are becoming who you were before life weighed you down, before the betrayals taught you to guard your heart, before the losses taught you to expect disappointment, before the years taught you to call dreams foolish and hope naive. There's a version of you that still believes, that still hopes, that still knows joy isn't just for the young. And right now, in this very moment, that version is waking up from a decades-long sleep. Your spirit is no longer fighting itself. The war between who you are and who you thought you had to be, it's over. The silence unknotted your soul, and now the real you is emerging. Not the exhausted version, not the disappointed version, not the "I've accepted my lot in life" version. The chosen version, the anointed version, the version heaven went silent to speak to. If you feel this shift, if something inside you is lighter, freer, more alive than it's been in years, don't let this moment pass without marking it. Comment, "I feel the shift right now," not later. Now. Because heaven is watching to see who recognizes their own liberation. But here's what you need to understand. This lightness isn't the destination, it's the preparation. God didn't free you from the weight just so you could rest. He freed you so you could rise. And what he's about to reveal next will explain exactly what you've been freed for. Beloved chosen one, as we reach the end of this sacred encounter, I need you to remember 3 eternal truths that will anchor your soul in the days ahead. First, heaven's silence wasn't abandonment, it was appointment. Those 2 hours weren't empty. They were full of divine strategy being downloaded into your spirit. You are not forgotten. You are being repositioned. Second, The lightness you feel isn't temporary relief, it's permanent transformation. God didn't just lift the weight, He rewired your capacity to carry what's coming next. You are not the same person who started watching this message. Third, what was revealed to you today wasn't information, it was activation. You have been marked, sealed, and sent forth into a season that your circumstances don't yet reflect, but your spirit already knows is here. But here's what I need you to understand with absolute certainty. You are not walking this path alone. The same God who silenced heaven for you is walking with you into tomorrow. He hasn't brought you this far to abandon you now. Romans 8:31 settles it forever. If God is for us, who can be against us? And beyond God's presence, you have this community. Right here, right now, thousands of chosen ones just like you who understand the weight, who felt the silence, who recognize the shift. We are here. We see you. We will pray with you. So let me ask you this final question, and let it settle deep in your spirit. Now that heaven has spoken directly to you, now that the silence has revealed what the noise was hiding, what will you do with this holy moment? Before I release you, join me in this prayer. Place your hand on your heart and let me speak over your life. Almighty God, creator of heaven and earth, I stand in the gap right now for every precious soul hearing these words. Father, they've walked through fire. They've endured storms that should have destroyed them. They've carried weights that should have crushed them. But they're still here, still breathing, still believing. Lord, I ask you to place your mighty hand upon them right now. Let them feel your presence like warm oil pouring over their weary souls. Open every door the enemy has sealed. Heal every wound time couldn't touch. Restore every dream disappointment tried to kill. Give them strength for tomorrow, wisdom for every decision, and peace that surpasses all human understanding. Father, bless their families, their health, their finances, their futures. Let this be the turning point where everything changes, where the light finally breaks through, where the promise finally manifests. In Jesus' mighty name, Amen. Now, I want to hear from you. Share in the comments what God spoke to your heart today. Ask us to pray for specific needs. Let this community surround you with love and intercession. And please, share this message with someone who needs to know they're not alone in their struggle. If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel and ring that notification bell. You're not just subscribing, you're joining a family of believers who refuse to give up. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Your presence here matters more than you know. Until we meet again, walk in your authority, rest in His peace, and never forget you are chosen, you are loved, and you are never alone. God bless you mightily. Amen.